Arabian Gelding GR Amir on the basic handle technique. But before we get started, let's go over our equipment just a little bit. As you can see, we've got a loose ring snaffle on him along with a drop noseband. And if you look at the drop noseband, it's loose enough to where the horse can still open his mouth a little bit, but not enough for him to actually gape. Because the idea behind the drop noseband is to not tie the horse's mouth shut, but rather for him to go to try to gape, bump the noseband, and then close his mouth again. And I've got a very nice mild rawhide noseband that I like to use on my horses when I get them started. And we've also got our loose ring snaffle, and it's adjusted to where he has no wrinkles in his mouth, but it's not hanging. And it's very, very important that we have it adjusted that way so the horse always has a little bit of release of pressure from the bit. If we crank the bit up too high, even with just one wrinkle, we always have pressure on the sides of the horse's mouth. We also have our running martingale, which I'd like to point out, we have a ring down here a little bit lower from this top ring where martingales are traditionally attached. And I like to have mine attached a little bit lower down here. It allows the horse to keep this more natural head carriage. Sometimes when we clip our martingales up here, it tends to put them in more of a seahorse type of frame. They tend to get a little too sucked back into the shoulders. And as we were talking about in our article, to adjust the martingale, we want it to be 1 inch down from the throat latch or right at the throat latch. So Amir is standing nice and relaxed right now, and this is his natural head carriage. So we'll go ahead and pull that martingale ring, and that is just about perfect. He's about 1 inch down from the throat latch. So we'll go ahead and get on this big boy and get started with our basic handle technique. Now we're ready to work our horse on the basic handle technique. And the first thing we want to check for is that our horse can bend his head and neck laterally or to the left and to the right, nice and soft and quiet on my hands. So we're going to start by walking him forward, and I'm going to catch my reins in my right hand, slide down my left rein, and all I'm going to do right now is just bump his nose in a circle. At this point, you don't have to put too much leg on. If your horse doesn't have any forward motivation, you may want to give him a little squeeze with your left leg to kind of motivate them and push them out through the circle a little bit. And I'd also like to point out that this is my first ride on this horse since I started him under saddle 4 years ago. He's basically just been sitting in the pasture, working a little bit, doing a trail ride maybe once a month or twice a month. So you're going to get a chance to see how we can take a horse who knows a little bit and teach him so much more. So now we're going to check his circle to the right. So we catch our reins in our left hand, slide down the right rein to the end of our fingertips, and we're going to lead his nose through the circle with our right hand. And you can see I'm just bumping and releasing through my elbow, and he's bringing his head around real pretty. And I'm not too worried that he's chewing the bit or looking around because he's nice and relaxed. Now we're going to go back to the left. So I'm going to shift my weight to the right, slide down my left rein, let him straighten out a step, and then we're going to bump his nose around to the left. So now I want him to start filling this circle out a little bit. So I'm going to push him with my left leg up at the girth, and I'm going to give him a little touch with my heel so I can move him out. And I'm going to keep bumping his nose to the left. So we want this horse to learn on his circles to yield his head to the inside, but not to make just a tiny, tight little circle with his body tipped over, but we want him to lift up through his shoulders and kind of move through this circle a little bit more balanced. Good. So now we're going to go ahead and reverse him. So now I'm going to take my left hand out a little bit. I'm going to shift my weight over to my left jean pocket and send him out to the right. And you can see he's ready to trot, and I'm not quite ready to trot yet, so I'll just put him in a little circle, no big deal. All right, so now we're going to ask him for a little more on his circle to the right. So we catch our cross, push with our right rein, and with our right leg, excuse me, and we're going to bump his nose to the right. And if he gets a little hung up, that's okay. He's a green horse. Whoop, we got a little stuck. No big deal, we'll just push him forward. Good boy. Because he's trying to figure out what this noseband means. So that means he's wanting to avoid the pressure a little bit, and that's fine. No horses like pressure. They're just like people. We don't like a lot of pressure on us either. So we're just going to keep bumping his nose around, get him a little softer, and then we're going to see if we can fill this circle out a little bit. So all we really expect from this horse right now is to just follow his nose in the direction of travel and to stay nice and quiet. And if he doesn't quite give me exactly what I want, like filling out this circle to the right a little bit, that's okay. That'll come with more rides. Again, this is my first ride on this horse in about 4 years. There, see how he's starting to yield? Good boy. Tell him thank you for that. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and work him at the trot. So since we're moving a little faster, we do want him to move out a little bit bigger. And I'm posting with his right front foot. As it goes forward, I come up on my post. Now we're gonna circle to the left. As I sit, I just softly bump his nose to the left. And you can see he starts to follow his nose. Now we'll ask for a little bit smaller of a circle. And notice that I'm standing a little bit more in my right stirrup than my left stirrup. You want to sit away from the direction you're going. And see how he wanted to take a few little canter steps there? I just kept his nose in the circle. Now we're going to go ahead and reverse. Except for right now he's feeling a little frisky. That's okay. Change my diagonal to prepare him. And I'm going to bring his nose around to the left. And then as I start back towards the wall at about 45 degrees, I'll let him have his head back. And I shift my weight to my left stirrup. Now we'll bump his nose to the right. Give him a little kiss to give him some little vocal motivation. So remember, at the walk, he wasn't as soft as he could be to the right. So we'll slide down that right rein, bump his nose to the inside, and push with that right foot. And you can see him starting to discover what I want. Now I'm going to circle him a little bit smaller, get that nose coming around a little bit more. And notice how my right hand stays out over my knee. I never pull it back into my body. I never jerk it up. We keep it easy for Amir. Now we're going to reverse again. So I just turn loose of his head, and then it tips him back over to the new direction. And he's going to look at the barrels, and that's fine. So we'll go right back into a circle. And he wants to bow a little, right into the camera girl, and that's okay. We'll put a little leg on him and get him back to work. So we want him to just discover to follow his nose in the direction of travel. And if he bows, just bump and release that left rein and put a little right leg to him. It's important that when the horse bows, you don't look to where they're bowing to. So I know he's going to bow right over to the camera, so I'm going to look to the left. And see how we fix that? So he doesn't know he was doing anything bad. He just wanted to go over and say hi to Jamie, my camera girl. So now we're going to circle him. And even though he's spooking at stuff, that's okay. I'm going to keep him working. It's very important to keep your horse's mind thinking all the time. Now we're going to reverse. So I just let go of that rein, shift my weight to the left, and he comes back to the right. Now we'll bump his nose around to the right, get his nose coming soft. And again, I'm pushing him with my right leg as I sit. And it's up at the girth, moving his shoulders. And I'm not worried about head carriage or head frame at this stage in our training. Now we're ready to canter.